All right, listeners, ready to dive deep into some Marvel Rivals strategy? Today, we're strapping on those rocket boots and blasting off with Rocket Raccoon. We've got some awesome guides to help us unlock the secrets of this furry little blaster, so get ready because we're about to turn you into a Rocket Raccoon master.
You know what always gets me about Rocket? It's how he flips the script. I mean, look at him. You think he's all about causing chaos. And while that's not entirely wrong, there's a whole other side to this trash panda. He's actually a phenomenal support character. This little guy can really make a difference in keeping the team alive and kicking.
It's true, you see Rocket and you think pure offense, you think big guns, explosions, mayhem, but then bam, he whips out those healing orbs and you're like, wait a minute.
Right, it's like he's got this secret softer side. But don't let that fool you. Those healing orbs are nothing to sneeze at. The guides are emphasizing spamming those things like there's no tomorrow.
Spamming healing orbs, is that really the best strategy?
Absolutely. Each orb has a limited radius. So the more you throw out there, the better your chances of keeping your team topped off. Plus, think about the ricochets. You can bounce those orbs off walls, get some crazy angles going, create this whole zone of healing that your opponents won't want to step into.
Okay, so it's like a strategic pinball game with healing orbs instead of silver balls.
Exactly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to Rocket's support capabilities, we haven't even touched on his mobility, which is where things get really wild.
Oh yeah, the jetpack shenanigans. Jetpack dash sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I bet there are some hidden depths to it.
You bet there are. Jetpack dash is all about controlling the pace of the battle. You've got a 10-meter dash in any direction, and you get 2 charges that recharge quickly. So you're not just using it to escape danger, you're using it to dictate the flow of combat. Need to reach high ground, jetpack dash. Want to get a better angle for those healing orbs? Jetpack dash. Need to juke an opponent and mess with their timing? You guessed it, jetpack dash.
So it's like a get out of jail free card, but for pretty much any situation.
That's a great way to put it. And then you got Wild Crawl, his passive ability, which lets him run along walls.
Wait, hold on, you can wall run.
Oh yeah, Rocket's all about defying gravity. With Wild Crawl, he can reach those hard to get to places. Escape from sticky situations, flank enemies, you name it.
Okay, now I'm picturing some crazy escape maneuvers and surprise attacks. This is getting good.
And just to add another layer of crazy to the mix, there's Flying Ace. It's another passive that slows his descent when he's using the jetpack. Combine that with Wild Crawl and Jetpack Dash, and you got a character who's practically dancing on air.
Wow. So he can maintain height advantage for healing reposition quickly and basically make himself a nightmare to hit. I'm starting to see how all these abilities work together to create that chaotic playstyle we talked about. But I have to ask, with all this emphasis on mobility, does that mean he sacrifices firepower?
Not at all. Remember, Rocket's gadgets, they're the real game changers. And we'll dive into those right after a quick break.
Stay tuned, folks, because we're about to unlock the full potential of Rocket Raccoon's arsenal.
And when it comes to Rocket's gadgets, we got to start with BRB, his trusty revival device.
Oh yeah, that little guy can bring back a fallen teammate in the heat of battle. Talk about a lifesaver.
It is. But it's not just a point-and-click kind of thing. There's some real strategy involved in using BRB effectively. First off, it's a one-time use. The device gets destroyed after reviving someone.
Ah, so you can't just keep bringing back your teammates over and over again.
Nope. You got to make each revive count. And here's another thing. It can't be used to revive Rocket himself.
So if our little furry friend goes down, that's it for BRB.
Exactly. And if Rocket dies while BRB is deployed, well, it's curtains for the device too.
Oh wow, so you really have to be strategic about where you place it.
Absolutely. You want to keep it hidden, but close enough to the action to make a difference.
That's a tough call. Do you risk placing it closer for a faster revive? Or play it safe and risk losing a teammate?
It's all about reading the situation and making that judgment call.
Talk about pressure.
And as if reviving teammates wasn't enough, PRB also drops care packages.
Care packages. Now that's interesting. What's in those?
Well, they contain either armor packs or rocket boots. The armor gives a small health boost, but those rocket boots, they're the real prize. They give you a crazy double jump.
A double jump. Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
That could be some serious vertical mobility.
You bet. Especially in a game like Marvel Rivals, where verticality can give you a huge advantage.
So not only can you bring back your teammates from the brink, but you can also give them a sudden burst of mobility.
It's like a 1-2 punch of support and mayhem.
I'm loving this chaotic good energy.
Oh, and we're not done yet. We got to talk about Rocket's ultimate ability, CYA.
CYA. Now that sounds intriguing.
It's a real game changer. This ability deploys a device that grants a 40% damage boost to nearby allies.
A 40% damage boost? That's huge.
It is, but it comes with some caveats. First off, enemies can destroy the CYA device, so placement is key.
Ah, so you can't just throw it out willy-nilly.
Nope. You gotta be strategic about it. And the damage boost only applies to allies within range and line of sight.
So terrain and enemy positioning are crucial factors to consider.
Exactly. You gotta use your noggin with this one.
Okay, so it's not just a simple activate and forget kind of ultimate. It requires some forethought and planning.
That's right. You gotta be mindful of the battlefield and make those smart decisions.
I'm really liking this trend of strategic depth with Rocket. It's not just point and shoot with this guy.
Not at all. There's a lot of nuance to his gameplay, and that's what makes him so rewarding to master.
Now, before we move on to the really juicy stuff like team-up tactics and specific strategies, I have to confess, when I first saw Rocket, I thought he was all about the firepower. I mean, the guy's got a giant gun for crying out loud. But I was so wrong. There's so much more to him than meets the eye.
Right. He's this surprisingly well-rounded character. He's not just a damage dealer, he's a healer, a mobility expert, and a master tactician. He really challenges those preconceived notions about hero roles.
I agree. And that's what makes him so fascinating. Now let's dive into how Rocket's unique abilities synergize with his fellow Guardians and turn those teamfights into pure mayhem.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. From healing orbs to jetpack dashes to rocket boots. There's one thing we haven't really dug into yet, and that's Rocket's primary weapon, Bombard Mode.
You're right, we kind of glossed over that one. But the guides actually stress how important it is to really master Bombard Mode. It's not as straightforward as it might seem.
Really? What's the catch?
Well, it's super powerful at close range, but the damage drops off significantly at longer distances.
So you can't just sit back and snipe with Rocket. You got to get up close and personal.
Exactly, and that's where his mobility skills come into play. Jetpack dash, wild crawl, those aren't just for show. They're your tools for closing the gap, unleashing that close-range fury, and then getting out of dodge before the enemy can react. It's like a hit-and-run tactic, but with jetpacks and rocket boots.
Precisely. You got to be quick, you got to be aggressive, and you got to be smart about using the environment to your advantage.
This is making me want to jump back into the game right now. But before we wrap things up, let's talk about team composition for a bit.
Absolutely. You can't just throw a bunch of random heroes together and expect to win.
So how do you approach team building with Rocket in mind?
You got to think about synergy. How each hero's abilities can complement each other.
Give me an example.
Let's say you're running Rocket and Groot, a classic pairing.
Love those two.
Me too. We already talked about old friends and how it can be used for damage reduction and mobility.
Right, using Groot as a living rocket-powered slingshot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. You can actually use ammo invention on Groot's ranged attacks.
Wait, really? I thought that was only for Winter Soldier and Punisher.
Nope. Groot's ranged attacks totally count. And with infinite ammo and a faster fire rate, he becomes an absolute monster.
So you're saying I can have Groot raining down a constant barrage of vines and blasts while Rocket's hitching a ride on his back.
You got it. It's a recipe for pure mayhem.
Okay, I'm sold. That's going on my list of things to try.
And that's what I love about Rocket. There's always something new to discover, some crazy combo you haven't tried yet.
He's like a walking, talking toolbox of chaos.
And that's what makes him so much fun to play.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Rocket Raccoon, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Don't be afraid to experiment. Rocket's all about pushing the boundaries, finding those unexpected synergies, and creating those moments of glorious chaos.
Well said. So get out there, embrace the mayhem, and let Rocket Raccoon guide you to victory. Until next time, keep those blasters charged and those tails bushy.